Bienvenidos a su canal Zodiac Finanzas. Hoy hablaremos de un tema muy importante, como lo dice el título del video. La gran caída será inminente. ¿Acaso sobrevivirá Bitcoin? Bueno, pues eso es uno de los temas y eso es uno de los puntos que realmente no sabemos. ¿Realmente sobrevivirá Bitcoin en una caída financiera? Hasta ahora Bitcoin se ha mantenido a la par de la bolsa. Cae la bolsa de valores, cae Bitcoin. Cuando realmente Bitcoin se había creado o el objetivo era ser descentralizado y que estaría totalmente separado de la bolsa. Realmente iba a ser un refugio, una moneda descentralizada, cosa que no ha sido así. Ya ha sido manipulable, ya le han metido mano muchas instituciones. Los exchanges lo manipulan también. Claro, es un activo que todavía podemos invertir a largo plazo y eso a saber si este activo no cae todavía de precio. Sabemos que es importante que podamos resguardar nuestro dinero y saber en qué momento poder invertir. Si cuando exista un colapso financiero, habrá oportunidades de inversión. Y claro que las debe de haber, claro que las hay. Un escritor famoso, James Rickards, habla acerca de la riqueza que se puede hacer en una caída. Habla de esta gran caída y de los ciclos que siempre se han cumplido a través de la historia y en los diferentes años que ha habido un colapso económico. Pero él habla de una gran caída, una caída histórica, una caída que es la más grande de todas las caídas, o sea, la madre de todas las caídas. Entonces, necesitamos estar preparados. En este libro también nos enseña a cómo hacer crecer riqueza durante el colapso que se aproxima, ya que es inminente. Necesitamos entender que estamos obligados a tener un refugio físico, no de criptomonedas. De un día para otro el internet desaparece, el exchange cierra o cae en ataque, la criptomoneda cae en ataque o autoataque y desaparece. Esto ha sucedido. Ahorita Celsius no deja retirar a sus clientes sus activos para poder tener capitalización. Muchas criptomonedas están a muy bajo precio, pero no sabemos si estas de repente van a cerrar, van a desaparecer o se van a mantener. Necesitamos aprender a tener las manos fuera del mercado digital durante la gran caída y previa a este suceso. Los dejo con un video para que lo analicen. Si tienen la oportunidad de descargar el libro en PDF, se los dejaré el enlace en la descripción del video. Seguiremos publicando más videos relacionados con la educación financiera, con la gran caída, el que ustedes puedan resguardar su dinero, su riqueza, su patrimonio y un activo muy importante, un activo físico que pudiera superar el precio del oro. Ese activo físico nos puede ayudar a incrementar nuestra riqueza durante una crisis económica global. Lo hablaremos en el siguiente video. Mientras, los dejo con esta entrevista a James Rickards. Hasta luego.
Hello, I'm Lourdes Smits for Australia's Finance News Network, and joining me in Sydney to discuss his latest book is author, economist, lawyer, investment banker and portfolio manager at West Shore Funds, Jim Rickards. Jim, great to speak with you down under.
Great to see you, Lola. It's fantastic to be here. I love Australia.
Now, before Death of Money, Currency Wars, the making of the next global crisis, was released in 2011. How does Death of Money expand on your original piece?
Well, it's a great question. I tell people it's a prequel and a sequel, and here's what I mean. Currency Wars opened with a couple chapters about the first financial war game conducted by the Pentagon, and there's a geopolitical aspect to what I'm doing as well, and we did it at a top secret weapons laboratory outside of Washington, and we had a Russia team and a China team, and we played this out over a couple of days. Well, a lot of people ask me, they say, well, Jim, that was fascinating. I love that part of the book. What were you doing there? How did you get invited? Why did the Pentagon call you to ask them to facilitate, participate in this war game? So I sort of tell the backstory of my involvement with national security matters prior to 2009. So that's the prequel. The sequel is to take the story of Currency Wars forward into what I expect to be the collapse of the international monetary system.
So, Jim, what exactly do you mean when you say the collapse of the international monetary system?
When I say that, Lola, people say, well, that's sort of a provocative, scary statement, but I point out that the international monetary system actually has collapsed 3 times in the past 100 years. It collapsed in 1914, 1939, and again in 1971. So these things do happen every 30 or 40 years or so. You can see another one happening now. So I want to kind of warn people about that. And you're not helpless. There are things you can do in your portfolio today that will help you weather the storm. And we talk about how it's likely to fall apart, what's likely to come next, and how investors can survive it.
Now, the title itself, Death of Money, reads as a dire prediction of things to come. What do you believe will be the catalysts for the downfall?
It'll be a sort of simultaneous or instantaneous loss of confidence in paper money. People say paper money is not, dollars, Australian dollars, US dollars, not backed by anything. And that's true. It's only backed by one thing, which is confidence. And if confidence is abused, it's fragile. And if it's lost, then that's the end of the system. People don't want the money. They want hard assets.
So, Jim, where are you seeing signs of less confidence now?
Well, in one place is Saudi Arabia. The U.S. has sort of stabbed Saudi Arabia in the back by cozying up to Iran, saying Iran will now be the regional power. Saudi Arabia has been a big prop under the dollar. They say oil has to be priced in dollars. What if they change it to euros or yen? Putin has said he wants to turn his back on the dollar. The Chinese are buying gold. So you look around the world, you see all these threats to the US dollar.
Jim, you write that the next financial collapse will resemble nothing in history. If we have nothing to compare it to, how do you envisage it will unfold?
Well, the next collapse will be like nothing in history because it will be bigger than all the previous collapses. And this is actually, there's a scientific basis for this. When you increase the scale of the system, let's say you triple the size of the system, you don't triple the risk. You increase it by a factor of 10 or 100. This is not well understood. Policymakers don't think about it that way. They look at longs and shorts and look at the net risk. You're supposed to look at the gross risk and understand this exponential relationship. So because the system is bigger, the collapse will be exponentially bigger, and we won't have any experience with it.
So when is this likely to unfold? What timeline have you put on the collapse?
Well, it's the question I'm asked most frequently. People want to know. They almost say, hey, Jim, call me the day before. I'll sell my stocks and buy gold. But we won't know exactly when. But my comparison level, it's like an avalanche. You can see the snow building up. You know it's going to collapse. You don't know exactly when. My advice is don't ski there. Whether it's tomorrow or next year or 2 years from now, it's still dangerous. You need to prepare for that and keep away.
But Jim, what's your personal feeling over when it could happen?
3 to 5 years feels like the right time frame. I think 10 years, I don't think we're going to make it 10 years. There's too much instability. These financial panics have happened too frequently. 87, 94, 98, 2000, 2007, 2008. We can see the tempo. We also know the next one will be bigger than anyone before because the system is bigger. So the combination of the increased tempo and the increased scale tells me that we'll have a major financial panic probably within 3 years.
Finally, Jim, if we can finish with an outlook, you've made some bold claims about the dire future of the international monetary system. What do you think the US Federal Reserve will do next, and How does this align with your predictions for the death of money?
Sure, it's interesting, and actually it's perfectly aligned because the Fed tapered in December. Tapering means reducing asset purchases or a little bit less money printing. They're still printing a lot of money, by the way. They're just printing less. That was a blunder. They've tapered into weakness. We'll probably or possibly have a recession in the United States this year. I think Janet Yellen will realize that by the summer, so I expect a pause in the taper. They won't increase right away, but they'll just stop reducing. Pause in the taper. Maybe later this year, they'll actually increase asset purchases, which means more money printing later in the year. And that's completely consistent with the thesis, which is that they think they can print unlimited amounts. They're going to find out the hard way they cannot.
Jim Rickards, thank you so much for speaking to us in Sydney about Death of Money, and all the best for its release.
Thank you.